We will bring this meeting of Peterborough City Council order for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. The first item of business is our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we're in the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth, our relations. May we honor those teachings. Our next item of business is 30 seconds of silent reflection. Our next item of business is those who are able, if we could stand for the singing of the national anthem. The Council of the City of Peterborough recognizes the principles contained in our Constitution and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Next item of business is the approval of minutes of March 17, 2025, April 7, 2025. If we could get someone to move them. Councillor Crowley, Councillor Vasiliadis, we'll go to a vote. And that is carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Mayor Leal. I'll be declaring on, firstly, the zoning bylaw amendment pertaining to 4922 Fairburn Street. And then secondly, the zoning bylaw amendment. And I believe there's a property on Sherbrooke Street. Thank you.
And the associated bylaws, Councillor Duguay?
Yes, equally applicable. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, I'll declare one 11K that's dealing with the water main to Manisa Avenue. Any other declarations at this particular time? Oh, before we go to registered delegations, Councillor Duguay, I'll turn it over for you and your candidacy for director of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And I know Sarah Deeth is also going to assist us here very ably. Councillor Duguay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship and colleagues. As you may be aware, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities will be hosting their annual conference this year in Ottawa. Last year was Calgary. That'll be in the end of May, and at the conference, there is an opportunity for elections to serve on the Ontario caucus of the Federation Canadian Board of Directors. Currently, the board is comprised of 8 members: Michelle Boileau, the mayor of Timmins, and then the other 7 representatives are primarily from the GTA area. So I am attending the event. It's a very active agenda, but more specifically seeking to serve as representative on the Ontario caucus. There is no representation currently from Durham region all the way to Ottawa. and that's troubling. So with that in mind, our staff behind the scenes have very capably been assisting in the production of a placard that's handed out at the conference, plus video materials, registration. And to that extent, I'd like to publicly thank Sarah Deeth for her fabulous production of a video, which we will showcase now. It's not so much about, it's not about yours truly, but this is about our city. I'm representing our city and our area. And I would like to, thus, if it's ready to go, we can display the video. I believe it should be set up. And once again, Sarah, could you stand up for a moment? I know you're, and everybody, please, we should thank Sarah. Her work's been fabulous. So thank you, Sarah. My name is Kevin Dugay, and I'm running for the FCM's Board of Directors. FCM is a national voice for Canadian local governments. Having a strong, experienced, and knowledgeable voice has perhaps never been more important than it is now. I'm eager to contribute to the critical advocacy work that FCM is leading. I bring over 40 years of senior municipal experience to the table, and it would be my honor to be an elected representative on this critically important board. I have experience serving on national boards, and I'm keen to apply my skills and passion to the FCM Board of Directors on behalf of my city of Peterborough. Here in Peterborough, our priorities are directly in line with those of FCM, supporting local economic growth, investing in infrastructure, achieving housing affordability, ending homelessness, keeping communities safe, and building climate resilient communities. We're also applying a solution-oriented lens to tackle these challenges. FCM is a national voice for Canada's local governments, and we want to be an active contributor to the advocacy work on behalf of our communities. I have a workable and comprehensive knowledge of what makes municipalities successful from both the elected officials and the public service perspectives. I have worked both in public sector as a public service, including as senior planner, land use planner, and Parks and Recreation Director, as well in private sector as the president of a planning business that has supported development and land use projects across and throughout Ontario. Now I am proud to represent my ward in Peterborough as a city councillor. I can commit to you that I have a demonstrated ability to think big while also recognizing community context. It has been my honor to be invited to speak as an expert on accessibility planning and design, and I have been lucky enough to share my expertise in this country, including on the FCM stage. My national board experiences ranges from Water Polo Canada to the division of the Canadian Institute of Planners. On these national boards and throughout my professional career, my style is to be collaborative, positive, and solution-oriented. I would bring that approach to my time on the FCM board as well. I am a trained facilitator and have considerable experience in that field. And my volunteer experience is extensive and ranges from active and executive support of the Ontario Winter Games, Canada Summer Games, Rotary Club of Peterborough, Five Counties Children's Center, to the Peterborough Girls Hockey Association. Again, I recognize that FCM is the national voice for local governments in Canada, and my city does too. Both my fellow councillors and I understand the value and importance of the FCM Board of Directors, and it would be my distinct honor to represent our local government at this critical time for us all. Please vote for Dugay for the FCM Board of Directors at the AGM in Ottawa this May.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Thanks very much, Kevin. We collectively wish you all the very best as you embark on this campaign. The next item of business is our registered delegations. And we have a delegation on our 11J, the Physician Recruitment Pilot Project Update, Dr. Chetan Mahati. And I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly. Doctor, please, if we could have your name and address for the public record, and there will be 5 minutes for you to make your presentation. Welcome, sir.
Hello.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Please proceed, doctor. If we could have your your name and address for the public record, and you have 5 minutes to make a presentation. Welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my name is Dr. Chetan Mehta. My first name is spelled Chetan, and my last name is spelled M as in Mary, EHTA. I work out of Anishinaabe Health Toronto at 425 Cherry Street in Toronto. Our postal code here, for the record, is, give me 1 second. So our postal code here is M5A0X9. Um, so I just wanted to take a second to introduce myself to City Council. I'm a family and addictions medicine doctor who works here in the addictions clinic at Anishinaabe Health Toronto. I am somebody who has a bit of a soft spot for Peterborough, as I did my undergrad there, and I've gotten to know Councillor Alex Burke over the last couple of years. I'm sort of speaking to, I guess, the historic opportunity in recruiting American family physicians and the current climate in the United States, and attracting them to practice in Ontario. And I hope that this could be a really great opportunity to attract some good talent to very quickly fill the shortage of family physicians that we have right across the province, and of course in Peterborough for sure. I think this is a moment to seize on that. And I think one of the great things about Peterborough is that it is connected to a couple of very close regional hubs between not just Toronto but Kingston and sort of these partnerships established with Queen's University that I know of, and coming up with a really attractive package to really recruit and retain physicians for the long haul. So that's sort of what I wanted to bring to City Council's attention, and just kind of help in the background, give some suggestions to try and accomplish this goal. So that's kind of what I just wanted to share in a nutshell. And I know Peterborough is facing a very severe shortage of family doctors, like many other small and medium-sized cities, and big cities in Ontario as well. So with that being said, I hope I can be of some assistance in pointing in developing a really good, thorough strategy for that.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your presentation. It's great that you're with us this evening. And I know there's a question. Councillor Burke, please.
Thank you, Mayor Leal, and through you to Dr. Mehta. Dr. Mehta, thanks for calling in. And I told the story last week at council during when I was moving a motion to direct staff to look into this trend of U.S. doctors that are looking to leave the United States. And I actually told the story of how you called me to put this on my radar, and I appreciate, I'm grateful for you for that. So thank you. My question is about the sort of the trend that you pointed me to, and I think you used the word in our conversations that this is an extremely timely moment for cities like us to take advantage of U.S. doctors looking to relocate. Have we missed the window on this? in your understanding of what's happening?
Doctor, please.
Um, yeah, so the short answer is no, I don't think you have missed the window at all. And I think the window is just opening. So, this is a good time. And I think, over the next 2 to 3 years, there will be a good opportunity to continue recruiting from the U.S.
And through you, Mary Leo, to Dr. Mehta, I made a motion my first year on council to sort of look at how we were handling doctor recruitment. I was critical of the way that it was being done. It felt like a sort of soft approach, and we've heard what from our city staff last week of their new approach, and there's a lot surrounding marketing and social media and stuff. So I just want to ask you as a doctor, um, what is some insight that you could give to council in terms of how doctors that would be looking to relocate or students that are looking to find a career in a city, what are the best ways to market to those doctors? Is it social media? Are there publications? Do you have any sort of insight on that for us?
Doctor, please.
Sure. So I think a little bit of a targeted approach. So one, making sure you come up with like a really attractive financial package, and that really that's going to require the involvement of the province and like lobbying the province to really um, help make this financially much more viable. And I understand, the city of Peterborough is using its own tax dollars, which are much more limited from the municipality, just to try and come up with a strategy. So I think it'll take, a two levels of government to work together on this, and the province, has a big role in really coming up with the finances for this. But the other part is then a more targeted approach. So, like knowing where physicians to actually go to look for jobs, and the top, 3 or 4 places, that come to my mind are like medical journals in the United States. So things like the Journal of the American Medical Association, American Family Physician, maybe the New England Journal of Medicine. They all have classifieds that many physicians, frequently look. But I mean, definitely, American Family Physician is an important, journal to sort of look at because it's the top family medicine journal in the U.S., which often has classifieds at the back.
Thanks, Dr. Mehta. A couple more questions through the chair. Do you have any insight on whether or not, because this motion that I made is about focusing on the U.S., are there different ways that are like jurisdictionally that we have to think about in terms of moving licenses over from the states to our province? Are there states that might be easier to do that?
Doctor, please.
That, that's a great question. I'm not sure I would have all the information for that, but what would be important and useful is to contact the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario and the Ontario Medical Association, and they might have some data to help answer, those questions, and to help develop, uh, pathways to expedite this.
Thank you so much. And my final question to you through the chair, Dr. Mehta, again, thank you so much for speaking to this, because I guess it's your idea that prompted me to make the motion. Just to be clear, though, for the public and for the rest of council, you're not part of our doctor think tank that the city's collaborating with. You did your undergrad in Peterborough, and you have a connection to the city, and you've also built some strong relationships with some local doctors. Is that correct?
Dr. Mehta, please.
Yes, that's correct. Um, so my connection is as a Trent alumni to Peterborough. And over the last couple of years, I have met a couple of the physicians who work at the Rapid Access Addictions Medicine Clinic through the Peterborough General Hospital. And so I'm a little bit professionally networked into Peterborough that way. And, transferring patients, who I've seen in Toronto who ended up in my practice here, but then, transitioning them back to Peterborough. So that's my connection.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mehta.
Councillor Vasiliadis and Councillor Real. Councillor Vasiliadis, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Mehta. I just have a few questions. So in September of 2024, we hired a physician recruiter. Did you reach out to our physician recruiter coordinator about your idea?
Doctor, please.
No, I haven't had the chance. And I'd be happy to share any of these ideas with them.
Yeah, just the reason I ask is that we are actively recruiting physicians from the U.S. along with the U.K., Ireland, and other countries too. But I was just curious. Generally, it goes through our physician recruiter, and then an idea can develop with this. But now, as Councillor Burke asked, you're not a part of the family physician think tank. And the reason I ask that is that we rely heavily on the think tank to give us information. That's a part of physicians recruit physicians, right? And we just figured that works well, and because physicians know other physicians, right? So, but you're not a part of that, just to clarify.
Doctor?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
I'm not a part of that particular think tank.
Okay, and then, like I was saying, we already are actively recruiting physicians from the U.S. So again, you were saying that we need to make a more attractive financial package, and would you separate that from, say, if we were trying to recruit from the UK or Ireland? Would it be more money to a U.S. physician?
Doctor, please.
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I suspect a lot of the challenges for, physicians in the UK or in the United States are going to be similar, but I think there's a stronger push factor for family physicians in the US who might be seeking opportunities in Canada. And what I have seen over the last few years is that, as I've worked in different places, there are more US physicians who have been slowly entering the Canadian system. And this was, even before the 2024 elections. And, I think one thing that is very attractive to American physicians about practicing in our system is that we have a single payer system, which makes things much easier. When I say single payer, that means there's only one insurer, and that's the province. And so if there's any, challenges with billing or errors or, negotiation, it's a lot easier compared to being in the U.S. where, when patients come, there are multiple different payers, either from the government or the private sector, that pay for physician services. And this requires a lot more time to try and navigate and manage, different insurance policies and systems.
Mm-hmm. Just, one more question, and thank you for the answer. When I looked this up, I did find that it seemed to be more of a provincial initiative. I believe it was BC and was it Manitoba that have been looking at this on a provincial level.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and so no, it's so. Would you think it'd be more of a effective as a provincial initiative?
I think the province has a big role to play on this. And I think, there is if municipal governments, can approach the province and, advocate for more resources, that will make a big difference in your recruitment strategy and what's available to entice physicians to relocate.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Real, please.
Through the chair to Dr. Mehta, thank you very much for being here tonight. Couple of questions. Like most municipalities, we're trying to give some sort of cash incentive for doctors to come here, and it's almost like a game of Hunger Game, like the movies, one municipality against the other. So do you see where the incentives that might be offering are an incentive for a doctor to come, especially with a doctor carrying a $250,000 or $300,000 debt load coming out of university?
Doctor, please.
Well, first of all, I got to say it kind of breaks my heart to hear that there is a spirit of Hunger Games, and because I know this is not easy for anybody, and I just think it's municipalities should not be put in a position to be fighting against each other. I think if we can switch that to a spirit of collaboration, and this is really where the province has to step up, I think, and municipalities can work together to really push the provincial partners to loosen the purse strings. And I think quite often higher levels of government sort of constantly say, well, funding is an issue, and we're in fiscally hard times. But one of the things that is forgotten is that Ontario, the provincial government, like Ontario, has an excellent credit rating in terms of lending money to, and having adequate health staff is like an important support to the local economy, and both in terms of ensuring, like, when people get sick, they get care in a timely way so that they can return to work and return to being tax-paying citizens, as opposed to someone who is a recipient of social services. So I think this is really important to kind of highlight, and also municipalities are not just having to vie with each other, but also, like, we have to think about other provinces and other health systems that are also trying to recruit from that same talent pool. And of course, there's no one strategy that's going to fix this, right? And in general, I think for primary care, we have to kind of think about multiple approaches, including expanding, like, perhaps the role of physician assistants, and of course, like, encouraging more use of nurse practitioners and fuller scope of practice for community-based nursing and so on. So it will take a range of these things to meet the needs of every community.
Through the chair to Dr.
Continue,
Mehta,
Councillor Real, continue.
we are sending our people over to England on a fact-finding mission to try and get doctors or doctor recruitment. Do you have any suggestions for us if just what you laid out is the same thing, that there has to be a huge incentive for doctors to leave Great Britain or even the United States with a debt load? Any suggestions, and probably there's some of the colleagues that you have that have immigrated over here, suggestions for a trip over to England and the success rate of maybe bringing some doctors back.
Doctor, please.
Sure. I mean, I think first of all, it may help to, if, I remember, so I'm going to go back a little. I graduated medical school in 2006 and entered practice in 2009. And I remember, we were in a similar position in the early 2000s where there was a real shortage of family physicians, and the provincial government sat down, put together a task force in some way similar to what they're doing now to say, okay, what can we do to increase interest and enrollment to family medicine and keep people in the profession. And so they did some pretty big, bold moves at the time. So, for example, I remember, if you were a new graduate, there was an opportunity for a site visit where, there was, money set aside to, pay for people's travel expenses, actually put them up in a hotel or whatever the case might be, and give them a little bit of a tour so they could see, the town. And, that was of course only if you were like if you're quite seriously considering, coming to practice in a certain area. Um, you know, Tuition incentives. So, for return of service, perhaps, a payment of tuition fees for each year of service, to a local community. Also, the opportunity for more blended and salaried models. So, for example, in my first year in practice, I worked up in James Bay, and it was a very remote part of the province. And at that time, to work in James Bay, the province, offered a generous salary, with just a very simple, daily rate for physician services. And if you signed on for a year, it was guaranteed that you would have, 4 to 6 weeks of vacation plus some conference leave, plus some funds to pay for going to medical conferences, et cetera. And, a lot of those incentives and how generous they were decided on by something called the Rural Index Score, or RIO, through the Ontario Medical Association. And every municipality and town in the province, has been assigned a RIO score, and that sort of helps to kind of, remunerate on some level the more isolated and remote places, and under, places where there is a much higher proportion of unserved patients. So these are the kinds of things that might help in coming up with a really solid package to recruit internationally.
Please continue.
Sorry, does that answer
Sure.
your question, or do
Yeah.
you want me to
Yeah.
elaborate a little
Yeah.
more?
Through the chair to Dr. Ameta. All communities are faced with a doctor shortage. And there is a reason why there is a doctor shortage, but also young graduates facing a $250,000 to $300,000 debt load. Would it behoove us as a city council to send part of our package here, or what we're trying to do? Because I don't know the exact year, but we're going to have 30,000 people in the city of Peterborough without a doctor, to send a letter to the Premier of the province, to Sylvia Jones, to our MPP, that they have to do something about the doctor shortage, and that has to do with what they're doing about colleges, because not picking on any government, but I believe it was the Mike Harris government that changed the rules that universities could charge whatever they wanted for the courses that a doctor had to take. Could you see that as a plan for us to write this letter to the government to say, look, the doctor is not the municipality's responsibility. It's your responsibility to fix the doctor shortage. I guess that's where I'm going.
Doctor, please.
Yes, I think that is something that is worth considering, because if you have this many people that are unattached, that's quite serious. And this is one of student debt load, and the fear of not being able to get out of very serious student debt is a deterrent. It turns people away from choosing family medicine because they are afraid they will not be able to pay off their debts. And we can see in the last few years that the number of people choosing family medicine in medical school has been declining. So this is a system problem. And so when people are facing that much debt, you have to take this into account in the remuneration packages.
Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Further questions, Doctor? I have a couple of questions. The town of Huntsville, lovely place. Part of their doctor recruitment is a free golf course membership at Deerhurst. Beautiful golf course, played it, great country club. They also provide free car leases from a local car dealer in Huntsville. What's your view on this race to the bottom?
Well, those might be, those are nice things, but my question is, is it going to pay down your student debt, right? The last time I checked, a golf membership is not going to pay anybody's student debt down. Maybe a car lease, that's helpful because it reduces some of your own personal costs. Housing, sure. But I just don't think these kinds of things should be forced upon municipalities. In the Canada Health Act, every Canadian, should have the right to, equitable, accessible healthcare. Healthcare funding and delivery is the jurisdiction of the province. Municipalities should not be forced to resort to these kinds of measures to deal with the systemic failures of the province. So that's what I think.
I have one additional question, Doctor. I've heard from other doctors from time to time that the OMA, the Ontario Medical Association, and the College of Physicians and Surgeons have a significant role to play to help resolve this problem. What's your view of the role of the OMA and the College of Physicians and Surgeons to try to correct the physician shortage?
So what I'd say is I think both of these bodies are aware of these issues, and they are taking these, into consideration as part of whatever is in their purview. But, the primary goal of the Ontario Medical Association is to represent the interests of doctors. And, sometimes that aligns with patients' interests and the public's interests. Sometimes it doesn't, right? And similarly, the role of the College of Physicians and Surgeons is to regulate the profession, to make sure that, anybody who's registered with them is providing a level of medical care that is at an acceptable standard and that, they are there to ensure patient safety and, and, to try and protect the public, and, with that in mind, they protecting the public also means, hey, what are the, if we're also disciplining physicians, and now we lose somebody from practice, this has an impact on the public. But their primary role is not physician recruitment and retention. Their primary role is to regulate the profession and make sure that, we meet the standard of medical care that should be considered acceptable for whatever specialty you practice in.
Thanks very much, Doctor. Your presentation was very insightful for us this evening. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We have no more registered delegations. The next item on our agenda is consent items.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Anybody want to speak to 11A? 11A? 11B? 11C? 11D? 11E? 11F has been separated out. 11G? 11H has been separated out. 11I? 11J? 11J? 11K has been separated out. 11L? 11L gets separated out. 11M? 11M gets separated out. And 11N? N gets separated out. If someone would like to move A, B, C, D, E, G, I. Councillor Hakey, Councillor Purnell, we'll go to a vote. And that's carried. 11F. So you're moving 11F. Councillor Purnell, Councillor Vasiliadis, we'll go to a vote. And that's carried. Councillor Duguay's conflict is duly noted. 11H, Councillor Purnell, Councillor Vasiliadis, we'll go to a vote. And that's carried. Councillor Duguay, your conflict duly noted. Next item is 11J. Somebody had a 11J. Councillor Vasiliadis, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Now, I'd like to separate A and B if possible.
Sure.
So again, A is just for information, and B was the amendment. And I'm going to speak about the amendment. And one of my main concerns about the amendment is at the last general meeting is that it would overshadow all the great work that's been done by our staff up to this point. And in one article that was written about the physician recruitment report, the title was "Attracting American Physicians to Peterborough" in it. And I've had constituents reach out and based off of reading that article asking, so is that our focus, when it comes to physician recruitment? And are we recruiting, just American doctors? And my answer is yes, we're recruiting American physicians, and we're also recruiting physicians from the UK, from Australia, and from Ireland. So, I mean, it's a part of the puzzle, really. That was my answer. But again, it overshadowed all the good work that our staff did up to this point.
I don't mean to interrupt you, because
Yeah.
you're moving 11J and then we'll separate it out.
Sure, that if
Yep,
possible.
okay,
that'd be
sorry,
great.
didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, I know it. It's all good.
And Councillor Hickey will second it.
Sure, yeah. It's fine.
Please
Yeah.
continue.
But I have been reassured by our physician recruitment coordinator and our economic development director that in the next physician recruitment report that we'll receive in June, so there's one coming in June, and I have a feeling it's coming with an ask of money, which would make sense. That the information about physician recruitment of American doctors will be in that report, whether the amendment passes or not. I mean, we are actively recruiting physicians from the U.S. We are doing that. So along with, again, the physicians in the UK, Ireland, and Australia, and of course, we're open to all physicians, really. So what I'm trying to say is that the work's already being done. And, the way I found that out is I actually picked up the phone. I talked to our physician recruitment coordinator and our economic development director. And it's amazing what you can find out in a phone call and the information I found out. And I think there's great value in talking to staff before meetings, and especially on this topic, because this topic means a lot to everybody. And, so I trust, and, I've been told that our subject matter experts, that we are actively investigating any ongoing trends. So this work is being done. We have a plan. We are a part of the Eastern Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance, and their mandate is to attract Canadians studying abroad, physicians from the UK, the US, Ireland, Australia. So this group is a bunch of recruiters that's in Eastern Ontario. So, I mean, we have alliances that we are always referring to. So it's pretty in depth what we've done up until this point. And I just really wanted to clarify that. I feel it was really missed in the last meeting because the amendment overshadowed, again, all the work that has been done. So we do have it covered, but I don't want to slow down the momentum that we've already gained on this. And I was very, happy to talk to Dr. Mehta, but it did sound like all of a sudden we're back into large incentives, and we've already talked about that. That was day one that we talked about it, and like I say, we're at about day 200 right now on what we're doing. So, and I can't imagine giving more of an incentive to a physician from the U.S. compared to the UK. Is that what we're talking about here? And again, this is a whole other conversation, but surely that isn't what we're talking about. Again, we have a game plan, and I would have liked to have gotten one of our physicians from our family think tank, family physician think tank, because this is a group of physicians that put in time, and they've talked to all their other fellow physicians, and they've come up with information for us to use. So I think in a way, when you look at the think tank compared to, an idea, the think tank really brings us some great information. And so I should have reached out to some of the physicians to come and speak about what they've already talked about, because we've gone through a lot of the things we heard tonight already. And, and again, one thing that we have that we didn't have until back in September is a physician recruitment coordinator. And that's really the first for Peterborough itself to have a physician recruitment coordinator. And in the past, we've generally shared with the county and through PCAD and GPADC at the time. So it's, we've come a long way. And, so, I mean, for that reason, I'm not going to vote for the amendment.
Counselor Vasiliadis, do you
yeah.
want to use your second
No,
flag
no,
right
I'll
now?
cut it there, actually, if that's okay.
No?
Through the chair, I don't mind the counselor separating this out, but I will be voting for this. I have been on council for 14 years and doctor recruitment has always been on the docket. And please tell me, and I don't know the number, how many doctors we have attracted to Peterborough. Because it's pale in comparison to the amount of people that don't have a doctor. Right now, it's 15,000 and projected to be $30,000. I know that we have a brand new economic development person. We just hired a doctor recruitment coordinator. I'm willing to give them some time, but I can tell you that leash is very short. Because if there's no performance, I'm going to be critical of them just as I was for economic development until we finally got it in-house. So I'm telling you, they're, as far as I'm concerned, they're on a short leash, as far as I'm concerned, because there has to be performance, because people need a doctor. And certainly, I'm going to go back a little bit when our CEO said one night, when we were talking about economic development, you tell me why economic development people are in Flamborough, England, at an air show. Because they brought absolutely nothing back. And I asked the same question. Here's some people going to England looking to recruit doctors. And I say the same thing. What are you going to bring back? Because they didn't bring anything back when they had their trip to England. And I don't see them bringing back anything here, because when I'm listening to this doctor from Toronto, who is well connected, when you have doctors that are carrying 250 and 300,000 debt load, you better have a big wallet to attract them to come to Peterborough, because they're carrying this debt load. The reason they're carrying that debt load is because the government of Ontario has to change the way they're doing or enticing people to go in to be a doctor, because it's not an attractive way. Then when you have to set up your own practice, pay for the administration and the maintenance and the cost, they're not doing that. They're either going to be a hospitalist generalist at the hospital or going to a specialized medical care where we need GPs. So we've got to get our head out of the sand here. And again, I'm going to say, I'm going to pass this here tonight, whether you separate or not. But our people here in the city of Peterborough that are recruiting doctors are on a short leash with me. Telling you right now, flat out.
Counselor Burke, please. Counselor Chico, get you on the list here.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Leal,
Counselor
and
Burke?
thank you, Mayor Leal. And the motion was definitely, it was Mother's Day long weekend, so it was like definitely made on the fly, and it was definitely made through my curious mind, remembering a conversation that I had with the doctor and thinking that this was the opportune moment to fold in some of what he told me into our own city plan to recruit doctors. And, you know, nothing in the motion, despite what the previous speaker said, has to do with bonusing. There's no mention of money. It's just about sort of focusing in on a strategy that is a reaction to what is happening globally and something that we can hopefully take advantage of. And, you know, I heard both with the delegate and during this conversation that we are actively recruiting U.S. doctors. So my question to Director Julot is, who are we actively recruiting from the United States?
Carol, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's not necessarily an individual counselor, and I will defer and come back because our physician recruitment coordinator, Chantal Van Paris, is not with us this evening. It's a bit more of a targeted approach. Specifically speaking, you know, the Birmingham, England event is one that's through EOPRA. So it is an event that's through our alliance with the Eastern Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance, and then the event in the United States that will be asking for permission to attend in Kansas City as well. So we're looking for high yield opportunities at events where there's been known to be a large number of U.S. physicians, and specifically this event. And I'm just going to pull up my notes, but I believe it's the doctors who entered into the medical school residency program between 21 and 23 are now at the point where they'll be looking for those opportunities as well, is what I understand. So that's why we believe that an event like this is high yield of this opportunity, because there, in theory, should be a large number of doctors that are looking for work.
Yeah, and thank you for that answer through the chair, because that's an important fact to clarify when it's being thrown around that we're actively recruiting doctors from the United States. What does that mean? And so now we're finding out what that looks like. That's a trade show. And the doctor who spoke is by no means the be all and end all on the subject matter, but he's offering some very good examples of how we could form an approach based on this motion. And he mentioned certain medical journals, 3 or 4 medical journals that doctors actually read that have classified job postings in the back of them. Through the chair to Director Julat, do we have ads in the job classifieds for the American Family Practice, the AMA Scientific Journal, or any of those medical journals that the doctor mentioned?
Daryl, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify, the conference I referenced, Councillor Burke, was just one of the things that are taking place. I will defer back to Chantel and then follow up with some additional information. No, we do not currently as a city have any direct ads in any of the publications. I believe, and again, I will confirm, but through our membership with the Oprah, they do a large number of initiatives that are focused on Eastern Ontario in terms of advertising. But again, I will confirm.
Yeah, so thanks. So, we're sort of like navigating through what's actually happening, versus this idea that could, from the motion, that could actually spur on a more focused approach to take advantage of doctors in the United States that are feeling very uncomfortable with the culture there and that are looking to move to places like Peterborough to establish their practice for many reasons that the doctor mentioned. The billing in Ontario is much less administratively burdensome than what it's like in the United States. And so the nature of this motion is not at all to interfere with the work that Daryl, you and your team are doing. It's simply just an add-on to take advantage of this moment in time, this window of opportunity where other municipalities are taking advantage on, which is focusing in on what's happening in the United States with doctors that have practiced there that are feeling very uncomfortable with the political climate. It's affecting the way that they can practice medicine, and they're looking to move out of the country. And so this is my intention and my motives behind this are very open and pure. And I think that it's just a little push in the right direction for our staff within their capacity, to follow through on this trend and hopefully yield some results. Thank you.
Just to let you know where you're on the speakers list, I have Councillors Duguay, then Lachika, then Baldwin. Councillor Duguay, please.
Your worship, I would prefer to call the question. However, I will speak briefly. I have had opportunity to meet with the director, Juliette, and we have discussed in detail the attendance of staff at the Birmingham, England conference. There are already appointments made with interested physicians. So this is not a trade show. This is a significant event. I would suggest the comparison made to the previous air show, while they both might have been in the same country of origin, one is under more considerable oversight directly with the municipality. So I'm satisfied that that is an appropriate forum. Councillor Vassiliadis indicated that we are expecting, and I believe Director Gillette has also told me that there will be a report coming back in June, which I think will speak to some of our various recruitment initiatives. I'd also like to remind Council that the province just announced a provincial budget within which there are initiatives focusing on the qualification of doctors. So we eliminate the barriers between provinces, which is really important. That's a stick in the mud. That has become a major problem. Also, there was also some discussion within that budget, if I've read it correctly, to date around financial incentives and opportunities to help municipalities. With respect to Councillor Vassiliadis' motion, I will support the request to have the motion deferred. this entire matter, doctor recruitment, medical funding it's a provincial responsibility. And we should be telling our province again and again and again at every opportunity we can that it's their mandate. We'll provide the home. We have the regional health center. We have a wonderful community. We can accommodate new physicians, but the funding and the predicament we find ourselves in, and Councillor, Councillor, I think you spoke to this funding model. This has been going on. This was discussed when I was with the city and planning in 1989. So it's constant. What's constant is the lack of funding and the certainty with funding. So with that in mind, at the provincial level, with that in mind, I understand we have a report forthcoming. Well, I understand the intent of the motion, but this will be is going to be addressed in the report in any event. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Chico, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Your Worship. I would just like to say that I appreciate the separation of A and B. I think that's completely reasonable and called for. However, I will be supporting the B, and for this reason. I understood the motion as something that was a new ask, recognizing that our team, our physician recruitment team, has done a prolific job in terms of creating a strategy with new elements to it that will draw physicians. So that's exciting. And it was wonderful to hear about that work. And I think it's a recipe for success. And I think we have that confidence. And I too look forward to that report coming forward. However, I felt that the motion that came forward last week was really that new ask. And the ask was for our municipality to ask the province if there's anything else they can do to be in step with other provinces that are making it easier for U.S. physicians to make their way to Canada, and specifically Ontario, and specifically Peterborough, because we have such a high need of physicians. So it was really just an add-on. And no, I don't say just, but it is an important add-on, I feel, because it's appealing to the political climate, the political landscape. There's no moment like the present where physicians are actively seeking to leave the U.S. for a safe place to land, a confident place to land with their families, because they know that the social infrastructure here is supportive of what they believe should be the ethics of good medicine. So it's a threatening time for physicians in the U.S. And I have not one, but two, three people that are physicians in the U.S. that speak to me about these things. So I just think it's a good time to, this could be an AMO piece for AMO to petition the province to create that infrastructure, that mechanism to make it easy for American physicians to leave the U.S. and come to Ontario. So that's what I see is the power of Part B. I think we would be remiss if we didn't look for another way to do more if we could. So that's what this amendment or this additional piece is asking for, and I'm happy to support it. I think it's shrewd. I think it's strategic, and I urge you to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Baldwin, please.
Your Worship, unlike Councillor Duguay, I will ask that the question be put.
Question being put is non-debatable. We'll go to a vote on the question being put. And that's carried. The question will now be put. It was moved by Councillor Vassiliadis, second by Councillor Hickey, and it's going to be divided between A and B. We'll vote on A first. And that is carried. We'll now go to B. And that is carried. The next item is 11K. If someone would like to move 11K, Councillor Duguay, seconder. Councillor Parnell, comments or questions? We'll go to a vote. That's carried. My conflict duly noted. Next item is 11L, the automated speed enforcement. But somebody had their hand up on that one. Councillor Riel, was that you? Sorry.
Through the chair, I will move the report, and I would like to speak to it.
You're moving it. Councillor Purnell seconded. You have the floor, sir.
This is very interesting. This is a timely thing that has been happening. I think there's some of us been on council for 14 years, some of us for 12, and it was always the thing about traffic calming neighborhoods. So we've tried speed pillows, we've tried chicaning traffic, we've tried speed meters, or whatever you want to call them. That there's a number of them around town, all kinds of things. But I think Councillor Duguay said last week, till you hit somebody in the pocketbook, that's when they're going to start paying attention. But the calls that I've been getting is this is a cash grab, or the expense is costing us. Well, we have to start somewhere. And certainly, purchasing or renting 12 cameras, and certainly having somebody to administrate that, because it's a very, it's a program that's very regulated. You need somebody that can deal with that. But certainly it's a learning curve for us, but certainly I think it's an expandable thing. But I think it's also revenue neutral. In the end, it's not going to cost us a whole bunch of money, but there's going to be some upfront cost. But I think that most of us, and a lot of the calls that I get, certainly on the traffic side of it, has to do with speeding. And until we can stop people from doing this, and if that means finding them and making them pay for their mistake, or not being taking road safety into account, then this is the only way I can. The police are trying to do a job. They have a limited manpower for doing this here. So I think we have to find a vehicle to make our city streets safer. And certainly I think this is one of the options we have here. Other communities are doing it. They found it successful. So I disagree with some of the people say that it's a cash cow for us. It should be revenue neutral, and we're hoping that that's what it'll be. But it also, what it's supposed to do is protect the city and make it safe for the people that are using the roads. So whether that's somebody that's in a car, that's somebody that's on a bicycle, or even somebody trying to walk across, and somebody that could be damaged. We just had an unfortunate thing that happened over the weekend where 3 children again were killed because of speed. And certainly I know there was impaired driving charges and stuff like this here. I don't want to see this happening in our community. And I think this is a measure that we have to take.
Councillor Hickey, the Councillor Duguay, and the Councillor Beamer. Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is something I too support. I received, interestingly enough, 3 calls and emails from moms in other parts of the city that asked if they could put it at their school. I said, if there is a process that we go through that will be very thorough, I can't guarantee that you'll get it. But I do have a question, and to Councillor Riel's point, I don't believe this is a cash cow. I believe it will hurt. It'll sting a bit, and I'm more worried about me. So to that point, Mr. Mallon, at what speed will we be activating a ticket?
Mr. Mallon, please.
Through Mayor Leal, thank you for the question. The speed limit is set under the speed bylaw, whether it's 50, 40, or 30 kilometers an hour. And we will be enforcing that in the same manner as they do across Ontario. So we'll be taking advice from Ministry of Transportation with respect to at what limit it gets triggered.
And do we know what that is? Yeah, through you, your worship.
Mr. Belloc?
Through Mayor Leal, we're not aware at this point.
I'm going to work on 2. So long as I'm under 2, I'm going to be safe. Thank you very much.
Councillor Duguay, please.
Thank you, Mayor Leal. Like my colleagues, Councillor Riel and Councillor Hickey, this is a program that I fully endorse. First and foremost, and at its very basis, is community safety. The areas in which the automated speed enforcement is to apply is in proximity to local schools and other community facilities. And sadly, what we're having to regulate, what other communities are having to regulate, is bad behavior and bad driving. And again, I'll use my street, for example. I referenced last council meeting, a neighbor and I just happened to be chatting, and we happened to view the speed indicator. 6 cars in a row. The slowest speed was 68 kilometers an hour. That was the slowest. I did it again. That's common. So it's not just my street. It's very typical. It happens throughout our community. I have had opportunity to review, to a limited extent, other communities. Their program, in some cases, is revenue positive. And this is important. There is an initial investment. As Mr. Mallon has rightfully described, some of the equipment that we require is by lease agreement. So we're not directly responsible yet for that first capital investment. We're leasing proved equipment. There's an administration program. And when I read this, it speaks to community safety. And, and that is first and foremost what this is all about. And if we have to enforce and administer a program of penalties to curb bad behavior, we have to. So thus, I will support this program, and I would welcome perhaps at a future time that it could be extended into other neighborhoods and zones throughout our community so it becomes the norm. Thank you.
Councillor Beamer, please, and then Councillor Vasiliadis.
Thank you very much, Mayor Leal. Mayor Leal, last week we had a really good conversation around speed enforcement. I was chairing, so I didn't get to say too much, but I just wanted to make some comments really similar to my colleagues. As Councillor Riel alluded to, every election at the door, we all hear it. One of the top issues is speed. Every week we get constant emails and calls from constituents across the city about speed. I'm sure the mayor's office constantly gets calls and emails about speed, whether it's on residential streets or school zones. It's not a ward issue, it's a city issue. And I think with the growth we're seeing in the community, which is a great thing, but additional traffic on residential streets, many individuals are saying the speed issue is just getting worse and worse and worse. So it is an issue we've been trying to address for years. As the report said, Mayor Leal, and I just want to reiterate to the community, this council has done some really good things around speed. We've invested millions of dollars this term at council on different policies and programs to help reduce speed. We've developed the neighborhood traffic calming policy, which has been successful. We've installed traffic calming measures such as speed humps, road bollards, raised crosswalks, and solar speed boards. We've reduced speed limits and implemented community safety zones in school zones. We've developed and promoted crossing guards in Peterborough. We've installed pedestrian signalized crosswalks. We've promoted and implemented public education campaigns to increase awareness of road safety. And we've improved lighting and visibility at intersections and roadways. So this council has done a lot over the past 3 years to focus on speeding in residential streets and in school zones. And many of these policies and programs have worked. They have reduced speed. However, we have heard from many in the community that that's not enough and we need to do more. This is a program that many communities have been implementing for years. I know not week or two, but every few months I get a link from a resident about how this works in other communities, and they're asking when is Peterborough going to implement it. So there is a track record to automated speed enforcement programs throughout Ontario. The program does work. The program does slow down traffic. The program is necessary in Peterborough, and this program is needed in Peterborough, and many constituents are asking for it. The program, there is an upfront cost. However, it will pay for itself. It may be revenue positive, but I think more importantly, Mayor Leo, this program will ensure we have safer streets in the community, and that's what many residents for years have been asking this council to focus on. We have been doing it, and this is just the next step forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing this speed enforcement program implemented throughout the community to ensure Peterborough is a safe place to live, work, and play. Thank you, Mayor Leo.
Thank you, Councillor Beaver. We have Councillor Vasiliadis, Parnell, La Chica, and Baldwin. Councillor Vasiliadis, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Mr. Mallon. I'm going to try a different approach here to figure out speeds, but in the report, it says that it's approximately $20 per offense. So at what speed do we break even at $20? Because it says per offense, it costs us $20, basically. So is there a speed that we break even at $20? I've never had a ticket, believe it or not, from an automated, so I don't know how it works, but yeah, but is there a speed that we break even at, or?
Mr. Bella, please.
Through Mayor Leal, I think we could look at it a different way. Perhaps our estimate is between 10 and 15 infractions a day will bring us to that break-even point. Speeds vary. The fines are set by the Highway Traffic Act. And then on top of the tickets, you also have additional costs for license plate information and for victims surcharge. So I really don't have the exact answer, but that's another way to take a look at it.
I was just trying to find out what Councillor Hickey was talking about there. I thought maybe a different approach. And I know that acting CAO Nelson mentioned after our last meeting, if I have a list ready, and I think we can start in Kawartha Heights and like work our way down in the West End if that's okay. But yeah, we definitely have a list. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vasila. Councillor Parnell, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Leal. I too will be supporting this as I did last week and spoke to it and asked some strategic questions as part of our education plan to get the word out. This is a concern throughout the city, as we have all heard. I would say that we have done our due diligence to prove that we have tried just about every possible thing we possibly could do as a city to help with this problem. So all of that due diligence should help us with getting approval from the MTO to take this next step. It is important to note that these cameras will move around with notice. There's notices go up that cameras are coming to this location, so we're not surprising people. But they won't just go in 4 locations and that's it forever. They will move around the city as determined by solid data, which staff will go through and make those decisions as they're delegated to do. We heard our commissioner last week, our acting CAO this week, confirm that it is 24/7, this program, but also what we have now is 24/7. So I drive through 3 school zones every day to come to work. And so I'm really paying attention to those 40 and all the drivers around me. And making sure that I'm setting a good example, and I think we all need to do that. And the police are very aware of this, and they are monitoring. So it's not like you get a free pass until the cameras are up. So please be aware of that. And it's for summer as well. It's not just when school is in. And through you, Mayor, I would like to ask a question to either Acting CAO Nelson or perhaps Peter Mallon. How soon could we expect to get the approval from the Ministry of Transportation Ontario? Do we have any timeline?
Mr. Ballot.
Through Mayor Leal, we will be working on this diligently to get all of the approvals that will allow the Ministry of Transportation to actually enter into the agreement. Mm-hmm. We're anticipating it's going to take possibly 3 months to get everything in line. And then after that, there's a 90-day posting of coming soon. So that puts us towards the end of the year.
Okay, well, the sooner the better, and I'm sure this is going to pass tonight. And good luck, and thank you very much for doing this for all of the citizens of Peterborough. Thank you.
Councillor Chico, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Your Worship. I think it's a wonderful thing that the council unanimously supported this last week, and that we're taking the time, each one of us, to speak about the merits of this tonight is really wonderful, and to be singing from the same page and singing in unison about something so important. This is a triumphant investment for our city. I think that there is not a price tag that we can put on creating a drive safe culture, and we've all spoken to that. This is such a key program. The evidence has been shared with us that it makes such a difference for something 24/7. A drive safe culture will protect our children, our seniors, those with accessibility issues, cyclists, pedestrians, everyone. So what a great investment. I was just thinking the other night, I happened to wake up in the middle of the night, and what woke me was the sound. I live not far from Charlotte, a dragster ripping right down Charlotte. You could hear the tires squealing, and it must have been at least 100 or 120. So it happens, and I'm sure some of us have had that experience before. The fact that this is a 24/7 program, we are going to catch that person, and we're going to change their behavior. And that's the power of this. No more Wild West. We need to be a safe, a healthy, for a healthy environment. We need to be a moving, growing city that has mechanisms in place to keep us safe. So I'm excited about this, and I can't wait for it to get off the ground. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Councillor Baldwin, and then Councillor Burke.
Quickly, Your Worship, to Commissioner Nelson. Blair, will we be getting an update report of any of the data that's collected in terms of finances and or offenses from the system? When might we get an update as to once it's implemented? I'm thinking like, maybe twice a year kind of thing, but I'll defer to you.
Through the chair, I'll start, and I might defer to Mr. Mallon for some subsequent, but my understanding is that yes, there would be, and I think there would be a requirement for some of the information feedback, even through our agreements. But again, I'll defer to Mr. Mallon to maybe supplement that.
Mr. Mallon, please.
Through Mayor Leal. Yes, certainly we can report back to council. However, if we don't get operating until the end of 2025, we need some time to evaluate, to assess. We have suggested, not based on a report, but suggested that we're going to do a huge evaluation over the first 2 years to look at expanding and seeing what direction this will take. So most certainly, council will be informed on the actual program.
That's very helpful, because that way, not only does council receive the information, Your Worship, but so does the public. And like Councillor Chica said, I supported this report from last week, and I'll be doing the same this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Lee. I'll just hop in, and I just want to, through you, thank my colleague, Councillor Beamer, for laying out all the work that this council has done to improve road safety. I think that it's really interesting to hear it be laid out like that, and to let the public know that we're listening and we're doing all that we can. And through you to Mr. Mallon and Mr. Nelson, Acting CAO Nelson, I just want to express my confidence in the work that you've done and my gratitude to you for the way that this has come to council. The report prior to this really laid out for us all the sort of nuances between the administration and the difference between the fixed cameras and the portable ones. And I think that I feel really confident with our approach, how we're entering into this. And I thank you for that. And I also will just say my own experience has been, living through the big impact that the community safety zones around the schools has had for the residents, for the children walking, and everything. And I think that this is just really great. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Mr. Ballin, it's always interesting when you read the Ontario budget, there's always little nuggets that are buried right in the back page. And I noted this one, that in the budget, they're going to be forcing municipalities to provide more signage to inform the public about cameras being used. So that'll be part of the budget bill. And secondly, the second piece of this is they're going to require municipalities to post on their websites the location of these cameras. So I just want to leave that with you. It's right at the back, about page 228 or so, but right at the back, small print. So I'll just leave that with you. I've read a few of those budgets over the years. I get used to it. So we'll go to a vote. And that's carried. 11M, is that, Councillor Burke, is that you? Floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Mayor Leal. And, you know, through you to Commissioner Potts, please. I'm reading this and, you know, words are sticking out to me like homeless individuals, shelter, encampments, and the such. And I'm just wondering why in our role as chairs of homelessness, Councillor Riel and I weren't included in any consultation around this motion.
Councillor Burke, who is that directed to? Sorry.
That's directed
question.
to Commissioner Potts, please.
Mr. Potts, please.
Mr. Chair, or sorry, Mr. Mayor, I recall that this was a motion by Councillor Baldwin. And it was discussed in a portfolio chairs meeting involving my department.
Okay, Councillor Baldwin. Proceed, sir. Sorry. Floor is yours, Mr. Potts.
As I recall, Mr. Mayor, this was a motion by Councillor Baldwin, which followed a portfolio chair's confidential consultation in the usual course contemplated by that bylaw, involving issues that are relate to municipal law enforcement and security services, enforcement of council standards, which is a responsibility of that division.
Through Mayor Leal to Commissioner Potts, would you say it's correct that there's informational silos that exist between these issues when we're talking about a motion that talks so heavily about homeless individuals, shelter, encampments, and things like that? Would you say that there's informational silos built up where communication isn't coming from some of these bylaw approaches to other divisions of the city that deal with the things in the motion?
Potts, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure I would use the words information silos. I know that the approach to enforcement is a multi-stakeholder issue. One of the aspects of enforcement, as is set out in the motion that's before council, is the relationship between shelter and enforcement. And of course, shelter spaces are the responsibility of the other department, community services. Public Works is involved in enforcement. There's coordination with the police as necessary. So this motion relates to the enforcement, the core enforcement part of it. And that's why I believe Councillor Baldwin made the motion.
Continue, Councillor Burke. Do you have anything further?
Yeah, through Mayor Leal to Commissioner Potts, would you say that the way that we're enforcing our encampments is successful to date?
Potts, please.
I think success is subjective. The way I would characterize it, for purposes of an open session meeting, is that council has established standards under its parks and facilities bylaw and its trespass bylaw. And municipal law enforcement and security services is charged with the lead responsibility for enforcing council standards. And enforcing council standards requires regard to the limits of the law and available resources.
And through you, Mayor Leo, please to Commissioner Potts, thanks for the answers. You know, this council has seen an increase in funding to our enforcement bylaw side. We have our own enforcement officers with uniforms and vehicles with cameras on them, and they're patrolling the parks weekly and reporting to us about what they're finding. While that's happening, is it while that's happening, is it fair? While that investment has been made, is it fair to say that the issues of encampments in our parks are growing?
Potts, please.
Council has approved resources that are resulting in the deployment of municipal law enforcement and security services in accordance with the plan that was approved by council back in 2023. Enforcement of the parks and facilities bylaw requires resources. The council has already approved. The adequacy of municipal law enforcement and security resources is never an issue in terms of enforcement of the bylaw. There are other resources the council is aware of that are required, and council receives updates periodically, confidentially. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything further, Councillor? Councillor Baldwin, Councillor Parnell.
Yeah, just very quickly, to you, your worship, remind my colleagues that the motion was put in open session in general committee. I believe it was unanimously approved. And I think the motion is pretty self-explanatory, even though it's long. We're trying to get some clarity from the province around how we go about enforcing our current bylaw. And we're having some difficulty with that. So the motion is designed to go back, send it to the province, and give us some clarity with respect to what we can and cannot do with respect to enforcing our bylaw. So that's all I need to say about that, your worship. Thank you.
Councillor Parnell.
Thank you. I move that the question be put, please.
Move the question be put is non-debatable, so we'll go to a vote on the question being put. And that is carried. It's been moved by Councillor Baldwin, second by Councillor Parnell. We'll go to a vote. And that is carried. 11N, Councillor Hakey, please.
Thank
First of
you
all,
very
would
much.
somebody like to move it, and then we can, you're moving it, Councillor Chica. Seconder, Councillor Burke. Good. And then Councillor Hakey, you got the floor, and then Councillor Chica.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So I want people to understand, I'm not against heritage properties. I'm certainly not against the registry, or designating a heritage property. What I'm against is when it's designated against an owner's wishes. Now, Councillor LaChica made a very key comment last week, and she's absolutely 100% dead on. This is direction from legislation from the province from 1975, I believe is what it was. We can debate whether it's right or not, but for me, it's legislation that I don't believe is correct because it affects property rights and property rights, and it affects the value, and it does affect the value when you start restricting it. We all had conversations today, or at least emails from some developers in the community, developers that do a very good job. And I can speak, and I spoke with the principal at Wylofts. The one window that you see, the arched window, was $45,000. So we talk about containing costs and keeping them reasonable. for the rental properties, this is one reason that they get driven through the roof. And it doesn't happen all the time, I will say, but if you go around downtown, you see the new windows, particularly the arched ones, they're very, very expensive to do. At one time, and you know, the citizens of Peterborough for 115 years were quite capable of taking care of their trees. Then one day it changed and they're not. And it was no different when the Heritage Act came in the mid 70s. Up until then, which was about 106 years or so, people were quite capable of taking care of the buildings, and then they're not all of a sudden. Ronald Reagan always told a story, the 9 words that people hate to hear: I'm with the government and I'm here to help. And he would use that story often. And the legislation, the potential of this legislation is very simple. It raises the costs. And quite frankly, and I've had this discussion many times at the provincial level too, I can't afford to have the government save me from myself anymore. It's costing too much money, and it's driving up the cost of everything. So just in principle, it's not something that I can support, just because of the aspect. If you really want to put a designation on a property, and I'm not faulting PACAC by any means, their mandate is to identify these properties. It comes back to us at council and what we want to do. Buy the property from the person, designate it, and sell it. Ken Doherty and I got into this the last time I was on council. Not got into it, but we had a discussion in council chambers, some might remember. And Ken said it's proven that when you put a heritage designation on the property, increases the value. I said, in that case, we should be buying all these properties, designating them, and selling them. We'd make a fortune. And he said, and I remember, well, that's not the way it works. And I said, oh, I know. And it doesn't work that way. And it doesn't affect you until it affects you. When all of a sudden there's some stigma on the house. So that's all. I just wanted to be clear. I understand PACAC's role, and I do get it. On principle, it's not something that I can support, though. Thank you.
Ruchika.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, just speaking to the motion, and I always appreciate the reflections that my fellow councillor Heikki makes, and again, with all due respect, appreciate all the things he's sharing. And from a real estate perspective, you know, we have over 500 properties listed. There are 2 tiers in the heritage legislation: is listing, and that's work to get it listed as a potential property to be designated. And then there's the designation, the second tier. So, you know, if someone is buying a building, they would be informed by the real estate agent that it is listed and that there is a potential that it could be designated. So there is that piece, there is that filter that purchasers do have. And again, you know, whether or not it's 1974 or 2025, the buildings have integrity, and it's all a matter of perspective. To some, it's stigma. To some, it's a mark of value. It really depends on the purpose of the building, as to whether it's a stigma or whether it's an advantage to increase the value of the building. So, you know, we can look at the elephant from different sides, but at any rate, this motion is not one that is trying to do anything new or to push the envelope about designations. It's simply a due diligence motion to honor the work of our PACAC committee, which is a ministry endorsed, a ministry sanctioned committee that must exist in municipalities, to recognize, to list, and to bring properties to council to potentially designate. PACAC decided on 53 properties that were priorities that they wish to be brought to council prior to the hard, fast deadline of December 2026. So what we're trying to do is just to create a mechanism for bundling, to make sure they get done, to make sure they're heard, to honor the good work and the expertise of the PACAC committee, and so that they're brought forward, so that we as a council can make those decisions. So thank you for your support. So many around the table last week. Councillor Duguay, my fellow liaison co-chair, for your seconding of the motion. And thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity to speak to that.
Councillor Burke, please, and then Councillor Duguay.
Thank you so much, Mayor Leo, and through you, I support this. I sat on PACAC while we had a council representative there, and it was really an eye-opening experience for me. I'm someone who was born and raised here, and I definitely have an appreciation for the character and the uniqueness of our architecture in the city. I couldn't imagine a downtown without the Market Hall, for instance. And so I think that it's important for us to sort of walk the line and balance these concerns with some of the concerns that the people have that are maybe against this idea. We've received an email from a developer today who's against the idea for some very valid reasons. But I think that the mechanisms are set up in this process for council to have the final say and to consider it from all of these angles. Another thing that I think about when we talk about this is when I was visiting with Elwood Jones, he told me about the octagonal house on Park Hill and George Street that used to exist. That was a Trent house. And, that's gone. It's like a Pizza Hut now or something, right? Like a completely, monotonous building that will not be remembered as much as the memory of that very special building that was there before it. So I support this. I know that it's a sort of heightened issue between the people that are for and against it, and I respect that. I have a question for Mr. Appleby, through you, Chair Mayor Leo, just about the process about how building owners are notified. Because I had a phone call when we discussed the first version of this, which was the long list, a few council meetings back. And this resident works for an institution whose building the institution owns the building, and he's on the board. And he was just sort of flabbergasted in the way in which he was notified about this list. He was given a very short paragraph about the fact that his property was on the list that was coming to council. And his concern, he didn't really say whether he was for or against the idea of designating, but his concern was that he received no information about what the impacts of that would be for them as the building owner. And he was reaching out to me to see what the framework around how this is done, like what it allows for in terms of us as a city being able to communicate with these property owners that are going to be on this list, who are going to have to maybe decide if they want that designation or not. Is there anything we can do at the city to sort of help those building owners understand what they're getting into with this designation?
Mr. Appleby, please.
Through your worship, in this particular instance, a letter was sent out to everyone on that sort of shortened list. I'm going to say back in March, just to give them the heads up that they're on a list. It was at that point not a sort of a sure thing that they're going to be designated. It's just that they're being considered. In the course of bringing properties through the PACAC and subsequently PACAC making recommendations to council, an additional letter would be sent out to the property owner should PACAC recommend a designation. That would provide that detail. It would let them know that PACAC had made the recommendation, and it would be packaged with sort of an FAQ sheet that we've prepared that kind of outlines, what the designation means, what your options are as a property owner. And of course, an offer to sit down and talk with us if they want to kind of explore in a little more detail what it means, and what their opportunities are to, participate in the process before council makes an ultimate decision.
Thanks, Mayor Leo. Mr. Appleby, is there any way that communication can be shared with council in the cases where we're asked and communicated with around those ideas and those questions, so we can send that to our constituents who are affected?
Through your worship, you're referring to like the FAQ kind of form? Yeah, it's on our website, and we can make sure that you all get that.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Mayor Leo. As Councillor Chica referenced, I was pleased to second the motion at our most recent general committee meeting. We have, from the list of, call it 300, 500 listed properties, we directed staff and PACAC to identify the priority properties, because the clock, as noted, the legislative clock is ticking. Now, by virtue of the identification of priority properties does not necessarily mean that the property will become designated. That decision still rests within these chambers. Like many here, I certainly value the built form and heritage attributes of our community. But I would say, and I had discussions with Director Appleby and Commissioner Nelson, Acting CO Nelson, around communication. What's really important, so if it's Councillor Crowley's property, because you're nodding at me in the affirmative, but if it was your property, you would want to know in a timely manner that your property is being contemplated for designation. And how, as Director Appleby has said, that you'd be able to chat with staff. You would know your options. You'd know you'd be able to come to council. And perhaps arising from all of that, you might agree and say, I'm on board. I wish my property to proceed. But conversely, we could have a property owner say, I'm not. But that voice also needs to be heard here, and we need to make that decision. So what's important, clock's ticking, as Councillor Cheeker and I have identified with staff, we need to move forward with these 53 priority projects. Will they all become designated? That's a decision that rests in these chambers. And like Councillor Hakey, if we have a property that has been informed, has met with staff, and speaks to us, either attends the meeting or in writing that they're not supporting it, that we have to seriously consider that voice of concern. So the motion is self-explanatory, but we need to hustle and get to these priority properties. And these priority properties could be as important as, for example, Market Hall. That's a priority project. The Y-Loft, the retaining of the former Y, that was a priority project. So with that in mind, I fully support the motion. This is a direction to staff. We have limited resources, limited time. We got to get busy. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Mr. Appleby, when the report comes back from PACAC, I wonder if we could contact the Insurance Bureau of Ontario. Mr. Bennett alludes to, in his email to us, the ability or inability to get insurance on buildings that have such a designation. I think that would be pertinent information as part of the report that will ultimately come back on the 53 priority properties. I'll leave that with you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any further comments, Councillor Berkeley?
Yeah, sorry, Mayor Leon, just have a question through you to staff. I know that the mayor and I had a conflict with 2 properties when we received the long list. Is this, and I don't think we have a list of the 53 properties. Does our conflict exist within, is this the same list we saw a few
Councillor Burke, I think we wait till that list of 53 comes back. And if there's, in my case, it was a church. If that church is still on that list, then we would duly declare a conflict of interest.
Good plan. Thank you.
Anything further? We'll go to a vote. And that's carried 9-2. We have no notice of motion. The next we have, 12A, the recommendation came out of General Committee, the appointment of Kofi, Beamer, Hickey. Comments or questions? We'll go to a vote. That's carried. We'll now go to bylaws. We have bylaw 14A. 14B is being separated out. 14C, E, and F. If I get someone to move them, please. Crowley, Vasiliadis. We'll go to a vote. And that's carried. Someone like to move 14B? 14B, Councillor Vasiliadis, Councillor Crowley. We'll go to a vote. That's carried. Councillor Duguay, your conflict duly noted. Someone like to move 14D, Councillor Purnell, Councillor Baldwin. We'll go to a vote. That's carried. Councillor Duguay, your conflict duly noted. Other business, Councillor Beamer?
Thank you, Mayor Leal. I never have other business, so I'm getting some stares. But just quickly, just following up on the leadership of the two Ashburnham councillors last year, Councillor Hakey and I are going to have a Northcrest Ward Town Hall on policing and community services, community safety, sorry, on policing and community safety next Wednesday, May 28th at Queen Alexander Building on Bernardo from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So that's next Wednesday, May 28th at 7 p.m. We'll have a presentation by the police services and a Q&A. So thank you, Mayor Lil. Everybody's welcome.
Thank you very much. Other business? Mr. Juliet, I have something for you. When your report comes back on the doctor recruitment, I think a pertinent piece of information is for a foreign trained doctor, whether it's Great Britain, Ireland, Germany, United States, how long it takes for that type of physician to get accreditation in the province of Ontario. What's the timeline for that? And whether they have to take any remedial courses to qualify with the OMA and the Council of Physicians and Surgeons. I had a call that when we passed the motion about U.S. doctors is that they would arrive in Peterborough tomorrow and start practicing medicine right away. Well, that's not the case. In some cases, it takes a year to get accreditation, but I think that's important information in your report, so I'll leave that with you. Any other business? Someone move the confirmation bylaw. Councillor Duguay, Councillor Purnell. We'll go to a vote. And that's carried. Move of adjournment. Councillor Crowley, Councillor Vasiliadis. We'll go to a vote. That's carried. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, staff. Thank you, audience. Have a very nice evening.